What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to episode number 6 of the Max Manus Pod. Today's episode is a big one. You can tell from the title, and I obviously teased it a little bit on the last episode. Jeff Passan joined us today, a man who requires no introduction, but I'll give him one anyways. ESPN senior MLB insider, very much the head honcho in the baseball news breaking game, even though we actually talked about a lot on the podcast about how that wasn't really why he got into it, and that was kind of something he picked up a little bit later on for various reasons, which was interesting to me. He was great. He is someone who, first off, I consider myself like unbelievably lucky and fortunate. And like I really try not to take for granted the fact that Jeff Passan is someone who's always been so helpful and so just always willing to offer advice and go out of his way to lend a helping hand with introductions and coming on podcasts and whatever it is in my career. I remember the first time I met Jeff was at the John Boy Media Warehouse about 2 years ago. We had gone back and forth on Twitter a couple times. He had roasted me a couple times, which, don't worry, did happen a couple times throughout the podcast. As some of my followers will know that Jeff likes to lay into me from time to time, and we can leave it at that. But certainly did not stop on this episode. And from the moment I met him, he really went out of his way to be like, "Dude, let me know however I can help you." And that was probably, I would say, the first like really foundational, like, holy crap, I've kind of made it. Like, this is absolutely insane moment that I've had in my career in baseball. And a couple of years later, here we are, and he's coming on my podcast. He is someone who, when I started this podcast, he was one of the very first people that I reached out to kind of get his take on a whole bunch of things for my vision for it. And I wanted to pocket him. I wanted to save him as a guest until I had a few episodes under my belt, and until I was really sure that it would be something that I knew I could put my all into and be really happy with the product. And I think it absolutely was. I hope you guys agree. So yeah, it was a really awesome episode. What did we get into? Oh my God. We talked a lot about his background and kind of what drew him to baseball originally. We talked about the various stages of his career. We talked at the end a little bit about specific players and people in baseball that like the public just needs to know certain things about, that people in the inside walls of baseball know, like, that dude rocks, this dude is so funny, this dude is super analytical. And Jeff kind of really peeled the curtain back for us on that, so that was awesome. And yeah, I think he really, I think, really appreciated that I kind of gave him a chance to kind of just tell all about his career and about what he sees as his role in baseball was kind of a big part of the conversation. We talked a lot about his appearances on like ESPN Sports Center, and when he goes on podcasts like Pat McAfee and Pardon My Take, and when he kind of goes on there to kind of be like a representative for baseball and what he sees as his role in that. So that was really interesting. And yeah, if you guys know Jeff, like he doesn't hold anything back. Like he was with it. So it was really awesome. Thank you to you guys for hanging with me. I know it's been a little while since I put out the last episode. I already have the next episode lined up, the next guest, which is going to be another really fun one. So that one should be coming your guys' way soon. And now like I was in Israel for a week and a half, which kind of tripped up a couple things recording wise, but I'm back in New York now. We're in the groove. So I think we're gonna have a really fun summer ahead of a whole bunch of really exciting podcasts. So I appreciate you guys coming along for the ride. And I would be remiss if I did not say big time shout out to everybody who came down to Somerset to watch me throw the first pitch, which was, wow, almost a month ago now. It's crazy. Time flies. Yeah, there were so many people that came up to me and told me how far they had driven from, people that came with their kids and stuff like that, which that was, again, another one of those kind of really cool benchmark moments that I feel like when I replay the early years of my career in my head, however many years down the road, one of the things that I'm going to remember is I went to Somerset and to throw out a first pitch, and there were like people that came up to me and were like, "Oh, love the podcast, love the Twitter. I actually brought my kid. We drove an hour," and that was just a real like, wow. It makes me not that I don't appreciate you all to begin with, but that kind of added another level of like, man, for someone to take that many hours out of their day just to come see me throw a first pitch and then immediately bounce and hop on a flight to Israel is something that it really is hard for me to really sum up what that means to me. Like it's a really cool take a step back and kind of just appreciate things moment. So you guys are the absolute best. This podcast with Jeff was the absolute best. I really hope you guys agree. It was one that I put a lot of work, a lot of preparation into, and I think it came out great. So looking forward to coming to you guys with much more soon. But without further ado, here's Jeff Passan. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Max Manus Pod. Today's guest is someone that people probably know for a bevy of reasons. You might know him him as ESPN's senior MLB insider. You might know him for his incredible hair, his appearances on SportsCenter and Pardon My Take, Pat McAfee, like all the biggest sports shows across the World Wide Web. To me, I consider myself incredibly fortunate that I get to call him a friend, a mentor, a colleague, someone who has been immeasurably helpful to me as I figure out this wonky industry of baseball. And I am unbelievably excited and grateful that he has joined us today. Jeff Passan, what's going on, man?
Max, how are you, my friend?
I am good. We're in like the fun part of baseball season now, right? It's like things are really picking up. NBA, NHL, like finally all that garbage is off the airwaves. Like it's our time to shine.
It's not garbage. Like, come on.
Maybe to some.
Like I went to Game 6 of the NBA Finals, and
oh yeah,
and it was awesome. Like the atmosphere,
okay, do tell.
The atmosphere in Indianapolis. I was there because my son was playing a baseball tournament in Indianapolis, and I reached out to some people I know looking for tickets, and got very, very lucky that they had access to it. So, like going with your kid to an NBA Finals game when you live in a city where the NBA does not exist, it was great. So I own Chiefs season tickets, and going to hockey games is great. So I'm not going to slander any other sport to prop up baseball. I would like to believe that baseball can stand on its own.
All right, maybe I'll just do that for you then. But yeah, I know you've told me that you were like the proudest bandwagoner in the history of the world when it comes to the Chiefs, that you were just like, no shame. I lucked into having a generational dynasty in my town. You're crazy if you don't think I'm going to root for this.
That's exact. I grew up in Cleveland, man. Like, I deserve nice things. After all, and this was all like before you were born. I don't know if you know what the drive or the fumble are, but anytime that you can take just a regular noun and it turns into a proper noun, it was either something very good or very bad that happened. and when you have drive and fumble, those tend to be pretty bad things. So I lived through that. I lived through the shot. You know, Michael Jordan over Craig Elo. I lived through the Cleveland Indians of the 1990s being, in my opinion, the most talented group of players to never win a World Series. So if anybody is going to hop on a bandwagon of a team in his town, it is me, and I have zero shame about that. None whatsoever.
Yeah, I think you got dealt a tough hand in that regard. So I think it's okay when you get to the point in life where it's like, listen, man, I have a kid. He wants to be a Chiefs fan. No excuse.
It's also why when I hear Yankees fans complain, I'm like, shut the fuck up.
What about me, who had the great fortune of starting to be a Yankee fan in 2010 and gets told, oh, you're a Yankees fan, you have it so good. ALCS appearances, sure, doesn't mean much in New York.
I mean, World Series appearance. Like, listen, would you rather have a team that is competitive every year and might not win a championship, or a team that stinks? Would you rather be a Yankees fan or a Pirates fan?
Oh, yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong in that regard. I think what makes it tricky for Yankees fans, this is something that we talk about at the John Boy Media office all the time, is that the Yankees sell their brand as we only care about championships, judge us on that, championships or bust. And then Yankees fans still get, like last year when the Yankees lost the World Series, there was no fan of the other 29 teams saying like, hey, you know what, Yankees, that was a really good year. Everybody was, oh, Judge dropped the ball in center, Soto's going to leave, all this stuff. Yeah. So I have the poor misfortune of like, I've never gotten this, I wish that I could just be happy with an ALCS appearance, but my team tells me they go out of their way to sell themselves on the brand of this is nothing. So
you don't have to listen to them. Like if it's a matter of like that's going to ruin your experience as a sports fan, like isn't that what fandom is? We get to curate what we want. We don't have to listen to anybody else. You can be a fan exactly in the manner that you want to be. So if the Yankees say that, and that puts you in a place where you are disappointed or saddened every year, then maybe do something to take yourself out of that realm of disappointment and sadness. And
that's fair. This is good. We're starting this episode with like some therapy from Jeff Passan. Yeah, high school me had known that Jeff Passan would be coming on my podcast and just giving me like a therapy lowdown of like, Max, going to the ALCS is good. It's okay. You can take that as a win. Like, we're here.
It all just depends on what you're there for, right? And I think there are some fans who are there to see championship caliber teams only. But I think you appreciate baseball enough to know that even in a game where the Yankees lose, you can see something that brings a smile to your face, or that you've never seen before, that's interesting or that's fascinating. And that to me is what baseball is. It's, a ceaseless opportunity to see something that brings out an emotion in you. And that emotion can be excitement, it can be joy, it can be disappointment, it can be amazement, it can be all of those things at once.
Yeah, that's a great place to jump into this, because the origin of this show is kind of just wanting to talk to people from all different walks of baseball life about why they were drawn to baseball in the first place and how they decided this was what they were going to do with their lives. So give the people the Jeff Passan origin story from early age. How did you fall in love with baseball at first? How did you decide this is something that a lot of people, there's a lot of 10-year-olds out there that say oh, I want to work in sports one day. And then there's a lot of people that 10, 15 years later realize all the challenges that come with it and back off a little bit. So take me through every step of what led to the Jeff Passan of 2025.
I fell in love with baseball in the mid-1980s at Municipal Stadium in Cleveland, which was a total piece of shit. It was a football stadium that had no business hosting baseball games, but I was there with 3,000 of my closest friends watching the kind of Indians teams that you saw in the movie Major League. They were really bad, but I still loved the game because I enjoyed playing it, first off. But beyond that, baseball just always spoke to a part of me that was not rushed or was not harried, and wanted to sit back and enjoy things. And it was a little different, I think, for kids growing up in the 80s, in the respect that we were not being bombarded all the time with dings from our phones and with social media and with all of the addictive elements that exist for kids now. And our dopamine receptors were not firing nearly as frequently as they do these days, and so it was much more of a time for baseball. And part of me worries that even with the pitch clock, baseball has lost that appeal among the younger generation. It's something that people at MLB are concerned about too. But I watched those Indians teams in the 90s, and they had Kenny Lofton at the top, and Carlos Baerga, and Albert Bell, and Jim Tomei, and Manny Ramirez. And these teams were so good that they had to trade Richie Sexson and Brian Giles and Sean Casey because there was no room for them in the lineups. And getting to see those teams, getting to grow up on those teams, a truly joyful experience, even without the championship. Went to college at Syracuse, covered Fresno State basketball for a couple of years, and I wanted to be a sports writer, right? That's what I wanted to do. Was baseball my favorite sport? Sure, but baseball also, the opportunities to be a baseball writer and the demands of being especially a beat reporter, I don't know how well they aligned with my life at that point. So I was extraordinarily fortunate that at 23 years old, I was offered the national baseball writer job at the Kansas City Star. I did not deserve that job. I got hired because I was cheap and I was single, and my editor at the time was a slave driver who we the staff that we had at the Star was absolutely unbelievable. It was Wright Thompson, who I think is widely regarded as the best sports writer alive right now, and our columnists were Joe Posnanski and Jason Whitlock, and Elizabeth Merrill, who now works at ESPN, worked there, and Jason King covering University of Kansas, and Bob Dutton, the beat reporter for the Royals, and Sam Mellinger, who went on to be a columnist, and Kevin Kaduk. I mean, I could go on and on about the super talented people who were there, but that was my introduction to the baseball world. And at the time, I didn't foresee myself spending almost a quarter century now covering baseball, just because the way the journalism industry works is that, if you have aspirations to go higher in the industry, you don't necessarily stay with the same sport. If there was a column job that came open in Cleveland at the time, I probably would have gone and taken it. I had a chance. It was a year or so into my time at the Star, and I interviewed at the New York Times for the Mets job. And I think I could have had it. I never was formally offered, but I think I probably could have had it, and wound up turning it down just because I didn't want to live that life, right? No, I didn't turn it down because I was never offered it. I pulled out. How about
sure? Fair enough.
That's a weird phrase too. I stepped away.
That'll be a good clip.
I stepped away from consideration because I see the lives that beat writers live, and man, it's really, really hard. And that's not to dismiss the difficulty of my job by any means. I think my job is tough too, but it's a different kind of tough. It's always working all the time. Don't travel as much as I used to, but that's more a function of where my family is at this point. So did I think I was gonna spend my entire life writing and reporting about baseball? No, but am I happy that was the outcome? Absolutely.
I'm always very impressed by people who stay in baseball for a really long time, like decades and decades, and don't become pissy about it. Don't become the old grouchy 70-year-old beat reporter complaining about pitching changes or whatever it is. And I think you strike me really uniquely as someone who holds a very influential position in baseball, understands the weight of the role they hold, understands that what you say and what you write can have impacts on people's jobs and people's livelihoods and how fans perceive different people. And you understand that that's no joking matter. That's very serious. And at the same time, at least when I watch you, maybe you'll disagree, you strike me very much as someone who, at heart, is still just that 10-year-old kid from Cleveland that just loves baseball. And if he had known that in however many years he would still be doing this, he would have never believed it. So how do you balance those two things?
It's not something I think I do actively. I think it's just sort of what comes naturally to me. And as time has gone on, I've learned to appreciate just how fortunate I am. I could be cynical. I could look at the industry of baseball and the fact that the people who are puppeteering it don't always have the game's best interests in mind. I could look at the direction that the game has gone in and focus on the bad parts of it rather than the good parts of it. But there's really no point in doing that. I think that leads to bitterness and cynicism just isn't my thing. I don't get me wrong. I will be cynical about things that warrant cynicism, but I don't think as much warrant cynicism as society delivers. And so if I can be someone, my job is not to be someone who is promoting the game of baseball. When it comes down to it, my job is to cover the game. And that's covering things good, that's covering things bad, that's covering everything in between. But I think if I came off to the public as somebody who didn't enjoy this, it would feel like I'm an ingrate. How fortunate am I to be doing the thing that I love, which is writing stories about a thing that I love, which is the sport of baseball. I have a hard time thinking that every day I'm gonna go to work and find something to be pissed off about. That's just and the toughest part of the job is figuring out how to take this thing that can be all consuming and marry it with a life that is worth living. And there are some days where I'm just tired of this shit. Like, it's a lot. But not one point in my career have I said out loud or even thought to myself, I feel burned out. Like, I hear people say that all the time, and maybe part of that is the way that my brain works, and that I'm really lucky to be able to withstand all of the things that this job throws at you. But even in those moments where I'm pissed off, like even on Father's Day, when I'm just trying to spend some time with my family and the fucking Red Sox trade Rafael Devers. and not only that, but I don't know it's happening. And I learned it from Robert Murray. So I've just gotten my ass kicked. I have to go and start making phone calls and figuring out what's going on here, who's in the trade, how did the trade happen, all of those things. Even during those moments when I am genuinely pretty pissed off and not in a very good mood, I remind myself, you could be digging ditches, kid. Like, you could be doing 1,000 different jobs that wouldn't be bring you anywhere close to the level of happiness and enjoyment and fulfillment that this job does. And that's the thing that I think the most from this. And, for anyone out there who's either considering a career change, looking for a job, trying to figure out what they want to do, like, being able to find something that fulfills you is the absolute ultimate. And, 23 years into this now, I remain fully fulfilled, cup runneth over.
Yeah, I think it's one of the interesting things that, like, I always have a lot of mixed feelings whenever I have friends of mine or other people that get to be like, oh, like, you're living the dream. Like, it's probably not like work at all. Like, all that. And it's like, on one hand, you're right. Like, I don't want to discredit what you're saying. This was what I set out to do. If I'm being honest, I didn't think that I was going to, like, get to a point where I'm speaking to Jeff Passan at 23 years old doing a podcast. Like, I would have thought I would have to wait a little bit longer before I got
23?
things like that. 23.
That is not a 23-year-old hairline, my friend.
Okay, well, listen. The person that I'm speaking to in this regard is someone that I'm punching above my weight class.
I am twice your age. That, you know what though? Here's the thing. I've been on PEDs. I think I actually started taking stuff to make sure my hair doesn't fall out right around when I was your age.
Okay, so we'll have to like back channel after this interview. You'll have to like kick out. Are the secrets available for the public, or is that strictly?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
It's
by all means, give the people the hair routine.
The hair routine is very simple. Propecia. It's great.
Straightforward.
Like I saw in my early to mid 20s that it was thinning a little bit. And as anyone who has seen me on TV can attest, I have very pronounced ears. Like, my ears stick out quite a bit. And in fact, I'm not sure if it was Jimmy or Jake who did this, but somebody once photoshopped me bald. It was one of those two. I think it was who does that sound like? Does that sound like Jimmy?
Was it coming from, if it was coming from one of our social accounts, then that might have been one of us on the social side. But if it was between the two of them, my guess is Jake. I would lean Jake in that regard.
All right. So yeah, they photoshopped me bald, and it looks terrible. Like, I'm gonna try to find this as I'm talking. So yeah, I saw my hair was thinning, and I realized that this has a chance to get very ugly very quickly. And it was right then that I decided to go and visit a kind doctor who gave me a prescription. And ever since then, thank God, the hair has stayed. And it's a different style now than it used to be. And that came from my older son, who one day said to me, quote, "You have old hair." That was a here we go. All right, I found the bald picture.
Okay, what do we got? Yeah, I think when you said it, I had some vision in my head of what I think it looked like, and yeah.
It's
Hey,
bad.
listen, I'm sure it gives you added gratitude for the good things that God and good fortune and medication have brought.
I was gonna say the big pharma, like, it saved me. So thanks, guys.
For all the shots, people take it. Then they do get some wins every now and then. I wanna. That's perfect because I want to transition into some of your on-air stuff, and I'm sure that the hair helps in that regard, even though you might never have had a vision for it doing so. But you talked about how you don't really see yourself as someone who needs to like stump for baseball. But that being said, you're in a position where, like I mentioned, Sports Center, Pat McAfee, Pardon My Take, a lot of these big shows that don't necessarily always cover baseball super closely. But when baseball is hot in the streets and they have an opening of we want to bring in someone to kind of set the record straight and give us like a really nuanced, a really thought out, a really clear understanding of this trade, this signing, entering this season, what do we need to know? You're often the person that they turn to. And I text you a lot after your McAfee appearances because I think it's very helpful for me that sometimes I feel like I'm too close to the situation where when I try to explain something that's going on in baseball to someone that's a bit more of a casual fan, it's kind of hard for me to put myself in their shoes because I'm so locked into it 24/7. But you, I think, do a really good job of kind of, I don't want to say dumbing it down. I don't want to throw all those people under the bus, but putting it in a frame in a way that people can understand if they're not necessarily people who on a Wednesday afternoon are getting ready to watch Paul Skeens versus Jacob Mizorowski.
I believe the word you're looking for is simplify.
Sure, we can run with that.
And perhaps you two could learn a little bit of simplification because that was quite verbose there. You know what? I'm glad you put it that way because I'm not here to stump for Major League Baseball, but what I will always do, I will cape for the game of baseball until the day I die because I think it's the best game that there is. And I think it's the sort of thing that if more people understood it or knew it a little bit better, they would see it, if not the same way that I do, then in a very similar way. Or they would find elements of it that they love the same way that I love a pitcher's duel, in the same way I love a 1-0 game, in the same way that I love a 12-pitch at bat, in the same way that I love like these little things that you might not see very often, but on the days you do, you're like, damn, today was a great day. And I think like for a sport that has a reputation of being as staid as baseball is, I think part of my job is to provide a little bit of energy and excitement because it's genuine. Like there are some people who go on television and they play a character. And I have no problem with that. Like it's a skill that I honestly respect because I think it's a difficult thing for me to go out there and not like be the fullest version of myself. And that, you know, the fullest version of myself is just a nerd who happened to wind up like with the best job in the world, and I get to talk about baseball. And so there will be times where it's like, yeah, when Paul Skeens is facing Jacob Mizorowski, I feel like it's my responsibility that the wider world understands that this thing is happening and that they should go and watch it. But at the same time, the important part of the job to me is always having that balance, not getting so caught up in being a fan of the sport that you're blinded to the other things that's going on. And that's what makes the job so tough. It's that it's not just the transactions that I have to follow. It's not just the standings or the games. It's everything all at once. It's an industry that has so many different tentacles, and I need to have a pulse on all of them. And, you know, for every story I write on Jacob Wilson, which I just finished today and which is going to be running this week, you know, I am investigating, you know, the FBI looking into the MLBPA and NFLPA. And I take that story with true like seriousness, not just because it's like more the capital J journalism that I went to school for, but because I think it's important as somebody who people do listen to introduce them to this wider world and show that baseball isn't just the 2.5 hours spent between the lines. It's this whole bustling, fascinating industry with all different kinds of characters who come together to tell this story every year, and that these stories every year pile up over decades to weave the fabric of what this sport is, something that is steeped in history and creating new memories all the time.
Yeah, I remember I think it was when you went on Pardon My Take, that you were there was a conversation about the Hall of Fame and the steroid guys and whether they should be in or not, and you could frame it much more eloquently and much more verbosely than I will.
I won't be verbose. I might be more eloquent.
Fine, we'll take whatever we can get. But you framed it something along the lines of, baseball is not just sunshine and rainbows and a day at the park with your dad and your grandpa with a hot dog saying, how great is this? Baseball is full of scandals and really messy things that are just as much a part of the game as the more happy parts, if we want to put it that way. And the Hall of Fame's role is to show both of those.
Yeah, that's why I think I've never gotten burned out, honestly. It's because there's new shit all the time. And that's like really exciting for me. You know, I have a list of story ideas going, perpetually, and it's constantly evolving. Whether I write it or if something's not relevant anymore, I'll take it off the list and add more to it. But there are dozens of ideas at any time that excite me, and that's the stuff that I want to write. I want to write the things that I look at and I'm like, this is interesting. And why, like, what about it can I use to teach the people who are going to be reading this, to better inform them about the game, to give them a greater foundation of understanding and knowledge about what baseball today is like. You mentioned like the responsibility earlier. I feel that. I really feel that, because I know beyond people turning to me as like the person who delivers them the news, I feel like 25 years down the road, when there are people who want to understand what was happening from 2004 to 2025, I want them to read my stuff and say that I understand that period of baseball history because of what he wrote. And I take that responsibility really seriously. And it's the thing, as much as anything, that drives me to do good work. It's that there are very few people who have the job that I do. And if we don't do a good job of telling the story of baseball right now, then it's going to be lost to time.
Yeah. It's cool to hear. I think it's going to make a lot of people at ease when you remember that the people that are writing the stories of the game need to have like the big picture in mind. Like, sure. You can't, the basis of your job is not just the trades you break. It's telling the story of baseball for future generations.
Yeah, but it's funny how it's become that in the eyes of so many. And it was something that I was really, frankly, reticent to do early in my career. And I didn't like doing because it was hard. That's really what it was. Sometimes it takes years to muster up the gumption to say I can do hard things. And even when I started on the transactional route, that was not something that I expected to be very good at, frankly. Like, it was as much because I saw where the industry was going and realized that, like, Ken Rosenthal's the only person whose job is super safe. And why is that? It's because he breaks all the news. So how can I ensure that there's going to be food on my table? How can I ensure that my kids are going to be able to go to college and we can afford it? it was a selfish thing, honestly, and I'm really glad I did it. But what concerned me is that if I went down that route, and I looked down for a long time on transactional news. Like, I sort of sneered at it. I thought it's like, oh, you're going to beat somebody by a minute on a story. Who gives a shit? What I didn't realize is that all of the conversations that I have trying to get that news, all of the relationships that I make along the way, those make me a better baseball writer. Those inform me better about the sport. The people with whom I speak will tell me non-transaction related things that open my eyes or give me other story ideas. And more than that, what the transactional part of things did was open up a brand new audience. I think when I was at Yahoo, the people by and large who were reading me there were going there for the writing. Because I could write a little. Like, that's what I've always prided myself on. I've always looked at myself as a writer first, and the reporting underpinned it. But like sitting there in front of the keyboard, something comes into my head and I type it out, and I look at it and it's good. I'll just be like, fuck yeah. Like I will actually say that out loud. I'll be like, that's a banger. Like,
that's a banger.
I get excited still to this day with writing. And I realized, like, I have a whole new audience that I'm going to be able, in addition to the transactional stuff, to expose them to the stuff that actually like makes me proudest, which is the stories that I write, but also the information that I find out. It's not always just the words, but like, I think the Jacob Wilson story is going to have a much larger audience than just A's fans, because and see, you grew up on the internet. You know the internet very well. Like, anyone who runs talking accounts, like, you have to know what social media is like.
Yeah.
If I told you that I wrote a story about how Jacob Wilson believes he's a great hitter because of FORTNITE, is that something that would interest you?
That'll play.
Yeah, and that is, I've gotten really lucky that over time, as I've gotten this reputation as the newsbreaker, whatever, all the kids coming into the game now have grown up like seeing my stuff if they were interested in Major League Baseball. And players, I think, are much more open to talking with me now and telling me things that they might not have otherwise had they not known who I was. So, it's been weird having this sort of rise in, I'm not going to even say it's fame, but recognition. But it's had a really tangibly positive effect, I think, on the work that I am doing right now, and has made the job in some respects easier, even though the pressure has gotten greater and greater.
Can you take the people behind the scenes a little bit to, like, the big reporting days, trade deadline day, winter meetings, the days where Juan Soto could be signing any second, Aaron Judge, like lockout ending even? What does your day-to-day look like on those days?
I mean, on the really important days, let's start like the previous night. I'll usually go to bed at 3 or 4 in the morning, and I'm usually up at 6 or 7. So I'm typically, like, if you see bags under my eyes on TV, it's because I'm going on like 2 or 3 hours sleep.
Checks out.
Yeah, and I am very lucky that I can function reasonably well on limited sleep. It's probably not good for me long term. I acknowledge that, but I don't know how much longer I'm going to be doing this. Like, so go full send now while you can. So up in the morning, and then I just start texting people. Like, that's pretty much what it is. And I will, at the winter meetings, I used to walk around the lobby a lot more than I do now. Now it's like so few decision makers are in the lobby that I'll normally do like 1 or 2 passes through there just to say hello to people, but I also like acknowledge that at the winter meetings there are a lot of people who are there seeking jobs, for example, and they see me and they want to talk, and I don't like being rude. Like I try to be a nice person, and I try to be very respectful of people's time, and acknowledge that, you know, if somebody has like the balls to come up to me, introduce themselves, and want to talk with me, I owe them not blowing them off. I don't want to be a dick like that, but I also have to work, and so that balance there is tough. And so rather than like, potentially blow somebody off or leave a conversation earlier than I should, I just avoid them. And and a lot of the
I hear it.
Yeah, like I don't like it. I wish that were not the case. And if I'm at the ballpark or out in public, like if I get stopped, I try to have positive interactions with everyone so that they walk away saying, yeah, you know what, he's a nice guy. Like that's important to me. But it's a lot of waiting around. It's a lot of being 99% sure something's going to happen, but 99% is not good enough. Like, I need to be certain, because the whole reason I'm in the position I'm in now, Max, is because I have gotten stuff right. The second I start missing things, that crumbles. And if that crumbles, so too crumbles everything else. So I am okay losing a scoop if I have any seed of doubt in my mind that it's not right, because I know how fragile it is, and I take it very seriously. Like the only goal of journalism is get it right. Now, if you can get it right and do so with elegant prose or with extreme insight or any of those other secondary and tertiary things, then great. But the entire reason that journalism exists and journalism should thrive is because people can look at what we do and say, that person said it, so I believe it.
I want you to, we've done a lot of like big picture baseball stuff. I want to get your take, and I want you to let the people in on some of the personality stuff, like some of the stuff that for the outside fan who might just look at a roster and be like, oh yeah, that's sure, we picked up this middle reliever this year, this guy who's been around for the last 10 years. I want to know, I want to give you like the open floor to give some people their flowers. Who are some people throughout baseball that you think outside fans might just look at them and be like, oh yeah, sure, we picked up that third baseman this year, that's a name I've seen for 10 years, but everybody inside baseball knows this dude is the absolute best, like top tier human being, super funny, super smart, whatever it is. Who do the people need to know just rocks in baseball?
Kyle Schwarber's awesome.
Really? In what sense?
He's got incredible feel. Feel is a baseball term, and it essentially means like emotional social awareness. And Kyle Schwarber, the way that, and he did this with the Cubs early on, when they had Chris Bryant and Javier Baez and just that whole crew of young players, and Schwarber was the youngest among them. Everyone in that organization saw him as the leader of that team. And he's in a clubhouse now with Bryce Harper and Trey Turner and a bunch of veterans, JT Realmuto, and he's looked at as the conscience of the place. And I think I think the reason that Kyle Schwarber is as beloved as he is because he's really thoughtful. Baseball players have reputations as, a little bit of meatheadery going on there, and that, I mean, you look at the Phillies clubhouse over the last few years, and
checks out.
There's
fits that
been
criteria.
A lot of that, but Schwarber's a guy who he got non-tendered. Right? So he's been through some shit. And I think being through that and having the perspective and being able to apply it, it has allowed him to be the best version of himself. I'll tell you, I really enjoy talking with pitchers. And I enjoy talking with pitchers because I feel like what they do is so incredibly difficult. Um, I understand that when you get enough reps of something and you're as physically talented as them, that yeah, you're going to be able to do this and to do it potentially effectively. But the psychology of pitching is fascinating to me. I think generally speaking, my favorite players to talk to are ones who are older than 30. And I enjoy, like, Jacob Wilson's 23. I very much enjoyed our conversation. And I like talking with younger guys, but they haven't lived yet. Guys who are 30 years old in baseball, they have gone past that midpoint of their career, and in most cases are on the back half of it. A lot of them either are married and or have kids. Like, they've been through some stuff. And I feel like in order to really have perspective, like the healthiest perspective on the game, you need to have been through a little bit. And I remember John Lester didn't talk a whole lot when he was in his 20s, and was not terribly insightful when he did. When John Lester hit 30 and afterward, he was one of my favorite guys to talk to, because I think he had been through some stuff in his life, had cancer, toward his late teen years, and spent time in Boston, which, is the sort of thing that will what's the right way to put this? Spending time in Boston will teach you a lot of things.
Sure, that works.
and to be clear, New York the same, but had been in Boston and had chosen to sign with the Chicago Cubs and had won a World Series with them. Like, he lived, and I think his perspective on the world was much richer and more informed because of that.
Jeff, this is awesome. You've given me so much of your time. One last thing that I want to run through rapid fire with you that I think the people will really like.
Let's see.
I prepared a list of baseball superlatives and traits, and I want to fire some at you. You could give me one name, you could give me a few names, but in the same vein as the fact that Kyle Schwarber, that you had that answer ready to go of just like Kyle Schwarber rocks. Every Phillies fan that's listening to this is going to be like, I knew he rocks. That's the best. So I want you to open up that window a little bit more for the people and give the people just a behind the scenes look at who comes to mind for you first when I say each of these things. Say one name, say a couple, whatever works. Funny. You
know who's funny? I hate to keep coming back to the Phillies here. Garrett Stubbs. Garrett Stubbs is very funny.
Smart.
Shit. What? I'm so much better at coming up with statistics rather than who is a smart guy. Do you want a smart guy that you wouldn't expect to be smart or think is smart?
Whatever you think works best. I'm happy to follow your lead here.
You know who's really smart? Paul Skeens is really smart.
Baseball rat.
Ooh, baseball rat. Nolan Arenado. He works his ass off still, and he cares so much. And you look at strapping 6'2" third baseman, Hall of Fame trajectory. You would not think baseball rat. That man loves ball.
Analytically minded.
Any modern pitcher.
Yeah, I was so I was gonna ask if you have hitters specifically, because I feel like pitchers are the generic answer to this one.
Yeah, Ryan Jeffers actually is a good one there. Yeah, Ryan Jeffers he's a bright guy and studious and open-minded. One of the first guys to use the torpedo bat. He's always looking for edges and advantages. But yeah, literally every pitcher in baseball right now knows everything about their pitch shapes and profiles and are trying to work on it to get better.
What about talented off the field?
Mookie Betts.
Okay, fair enough.
At everything.
Are there examples that the people don't know? Because people throw out bowling and people throw out all those other ones. Are there things that Mookie does that the general public is just like, dude, you do that too?
Yes, but I'm not sure that I'm allowed to share them right now because I've been working on a Mookie Betts story for a while and I don't want to give them away.
Okay, that's a good teaser. Nut job.
Oh, come on!
It's a positive term. It's a positive term.
It is. In what respect is nut job a positive term?
What if we frame it this way? Intimidating.
Oh, okay. Well, those are two different things.
You can meld those. You can meld those however you want.
Okay. I am not calling this man a nut job, to be very clear, but I will call him intimidating because he scares the shit out of me. Tommy Pham.
Okay. That's another name that I feel like we see the post-game interviews. We see everybody knows like when he showed up to spring training with a 12-inch stab wound in his back and was just like, this happened.
I got, Tommy Pham was like unhappy with a line of questioning I had at one point and just stared at me and I could feel my soul melting. Like I needed, and here's the thing, like players get pissed off at you sometimes. That's fine. And I've always thought that it's important to maintain eye contact during that, to show them that you're not going to cower, that you're not going to back away, that you're standing behind. It's not like I'm not a tough guy, right? But I think that if they're going to try to be intimidating towards you, then you need to stand up for yourself. I cowered from Tommy Pham. That man scares the shit out of me. And just like
I don't blame you.
I mean the like anyone who will go up to another player and bitch slap him over fantasy football, that guy, terrifying, absolutely
unique
terrifying.
Breed. Jeff, this has been awesome. Can you leave the people with just your favorite either player interactions or news breaking stories, like the quintessential moments of Jeff Passan's career, that if we put together a 10-minute highlight reel of just the best moments, what would be in there?
Oh boy. First news story, big news story I ever broke was, it made me start Twitter actually. I found out Aroldis Chapman was signing with the National League Central team. Didn't know it was the Reds, but I was having breakfast with Sean White that morning because I was, when I worked at Yahoo, I covered the Olympics. And so after like actively avoiding Twitter for as long as I could, I finally tweeted Aroldis Chapman is signing with the National League Central team or something like that. And that was how my Twitter started. Breaking Mike Trout's contract extension from Russia was really cool. I was there for the Olympics. Getting Yu Darvish going to the Rangers first was a really big one. There have been, it's happened a lot more frequently in recent years to the point where now they all sort of blend together. But like my career highlight, the best thing I've ever done was the story on Drew Robinson. I don't think I'll ever write anything better than that. I'm perfectly okay with it. I'm very proud of the book I wrote, The Arm, back in 2016. This is more general, but like ESPN can be a really hard place to work and a hard place to find success because there are so many talented people there and there's so much inherent pressure on it. And the way that I've been able to continue writing to a level that I'm proud of while still doing the TV, the podcasts, all the radio, all the other things that the job demands, I'm very appreciative that I have the opportunity to flex all these muscles because there's so many things you can do in this job, and I feel like I've gotten to do almost all of them, and I do not take that for granted for 1 second.
Jeff, that is an awesome note to end on. Thank you so much for joining us. It would not have been an appropriate Max Manus Jeff Passan interaction without a few roasts along the way. No. So, it's only fitting, and we'll have to do this again at some point in the not too distant future. Really, really appreciate you giving me the time.
I look forward to it, Max. Thank you for having me.